Hi, this is Dawn from Creative Appliques. Today we're going to show you a video on how to make our Tutu Crown applique design. First thing we need to do is gather our supplies. So we have our material here that we're going to use, and we're also going to use some of this tulle that's on a roll, and we'll show you how to cut that when we get to that point. It's very easy and very simple. We also want to have for our fabric heat and bond light that we will iron onto the back of the fabric before we put the fabric onto the shirt to sew it down. You're going to want to collect your threads that match your fabric and also your embroidery bobbin thread. Spray adhesive to help hold the applique fabric in place on the item before you do the tack down stitches. Stabilizer, very important. You're going to need the type of stabilizer for the item that you're embroidering on. So I am doing a knit t-shirt which requires a cutaway stabilizer, and I use a fusible poly mesh that I iron on to the inside of my garment. It's a cutaway, it's very strong, very stable, and it holds the garment very nicely without adding a lot of bulk. Also, water soluble stabilizer that I will use after I put down the fabric onto the garment and I have ironed the fabric down. I will put the water soluble stabilizer on top of that to keep the stitches from sinking into the shirt. Scissors, a ruler to measure the fabric that you need to cut, and a marking pen to mark the center of your shirt. Now I'm going to mark my garment. So I fold it in half. And I know my design is 7.5 inches. So I usually go about a good inch down from the neck for the top of the design. And so since it's 7.5 inches, I'm going to mark it at 3 3/4. And I also kind of hand press it so that I have a bit of a seam in there before I hoop it. So now we're going to hoop our garment. So I have 2 layers of stabilizer here. I like to use the poly mesh, which is the cutaway, and I also like to use a tearaway just for a little bit of added extra support and stability, especially with t-shirts, which can stretch and pull and have the design not lay correctly. So now we're going to slide the 2 layers of stabilizer inside the shirt. And these are 12 by 12 pieces that, since I'm doing an 8 by 8 design, which measures 7.5 inches high, I will be using a 9 by 9 hoop. So now the stabilizer's inside the shirt. I'm going to take the back of my hoop and I'm going to slide that inside the shirt, but the stabilizer is going to be on top of that. So the hoop, the bottom of the hoop is going to go underneath the stabilizers, but above the back of the shirt. I'm going to make sure I have it centered in the shirt as best I can, kind of gauge it. Now I take the top hoop, and sometimes you just need to shift your shirt here and there a little bit inside to get it to where you need it to be. Now to me that looks pretty spot on, looks pretty centered. So now I'm just going to push the top hoop down. And sometimes you need to just do a little bit of pulling, not too much. You don't want to overstretch that shirt because once you do that, then it's going to warp the design. and cause pulling on the shirt once you sew it. And there we have our nice hooped shirt ready to go. We have our fabric piece cut here. That's going to be for the number 9. And we're going to cut a piece of Heat and Bond Light to go underneath that. Okay. I always like to just keep it shy a little bit on the ends so that it doesn't get ironed onto my lovely ironing pad here. Okay, so now Heat and Bond Light has a shiny side, which I don't know if you can see that, but that is the glue side, and then there's a paper. So you'll take your fabric and lay it down with the right side down, so the wrong side is up to you, and lay the Heat and Bond Light down, and then my iron is set at medium. And you just iron it down really quickly, no steam, and that fast it's already adhered. And then you let it cool, and then you peel the paper off. And now you have the shiny side on your fabric. And when you put this on the shirt, or the item, and lay it down, once you iron this, it's going to glue this fabric onto the shirt. We sewed the placement or the guideline stitching. That is where we're going to place the fabric. So you have, that's in essence a template that shows you what size the fabric you need to place on the garment. So now, because this is the number 9, we have a little circle right in here. You see that? Now, after this is all tacked down, the fabric is all tacked down, we need to get that fabric out of the center of that circle. And there are several ways to do that. Some people prefer to sew it all down, and then once it's sewn down, cross their fingers really tightly and their toes and say a prayer and use a seam ripper to try to get in there to cut that area out. I, however, prefer to take a little snip of the fabric before I actually stitch it. So what I'll do is I'll place the fabric down exactly where I want it to be placed. And then, move this down a little because I want that to be right on there. And then I will fold the fabric back. And you see this is the circle here. I'm going to take a little cut right in here. Just a tiny snip. Okay? So you can see there's now a cut in the fabric. And once this is sewn down, then it's very simple to get our scissors under there to be able to cut that out. Now that the guideline has been sewn, the placement stitching has been sewn, we're going to put our fabric down. Okay? And one of the things I like to do is spray just a little bit of the spray adhesive onto the back, but I'm going to not do it in front of my machine. Because it's very bad to get this on the machines. And then gently place the fabric down. And now we're ready to sew again. So now we're going to cut our fabric. You remember the little part that we cut here that we snipped? You see that right there? Look how simple and easy it is to get in there and cut this out. And now there's no fear of cutting the shirt. Isn't that awesome? I think this is like one of my favorite tricks ever. And now we'll cut out the fabric for the rest of the number. These scissors that I'm using are a double curved scissor, and I just love them. They're so simple to use. And I'm left-handed, so it makes it even more challenging for me because most scissors are right-handed. So having a pair of scissors that I can actually use easily is huge. And you can see how nice and close these scissors get to the stitching without actually cutting it. I'm going to have to get in here a little bit closer. All right. The next thing I'm going to do is iron this fabric down without ironing over this, because that will heat set in that marking and we don't want to do that. So I use my lint remover so that I can remove all of the little lint and possibly little pieces of the heat and bond light before I iron my item down. So now I just very easily and quickly just do it once, passing over, or twice. And now we're going to put down the water-soluble stabilizer. So now that we've cut out the number and ironed the fabric onto the garment, I'm going to put down some water-soluble stabilizer. This is wonderful stuff because it helps the stitches to stay on top of the design. I need to pin it down, and obviously want to pin it well outside of the area that the design is going to stitch. Being very careful not to grab my t-shirt from behind the back side, pinning it on. Water-soluble stabilizer is fantastic because it helps the stitches to stay on top of the garment, stay on top of the item, not sinking in. And it's so easy to remove. I have a little trick and I'll show that to you later when we get to that point. Okay. Now we're ready to do the satin stitching. Now we're going to talk about how to attach the tutu skirt. So we have stitched out the guideline or the placement line for the skirt here. It's going to be different with every number. So what I do is I measure the length of the stitching. So this one for the number 9, and this is the 8x8 number 9, ends up being about 2.5 inches. So some people have used this, and if you use this, it's very simple. All you have to do is turn over the end, and it's super cute, but it doesn't match what my daughter wants, so I didn't choose this one, but just turn over the end that way. And then using Scotch tape, very easily and simply, right on top of the placement line, you're going to want to place Scotch tape. And the tape will pull off very, very easily. And I tape the entire part. Okay, so that would be really, really super cute. And at the end here, you'd cut it off and then turn that under like that. And there's your cute, sweet little tutu. What I also use, and this stuff is really, really fun, it's on a roll. You can buy this. I bought this one at Walmart. So you can find it pretty much anywhere. Michael's, Joann's, any craft store. But like I said, I got this one at Walmart. So my stitching here was 2.5 inches. So what I usually do is I like to make 4 layers. So I will cut 10 inches. So I take the 2.5 inches and I multiply that by 4. So that gives me 10 inches. And I will cut 10 inches, okay? And I cut 4 layers at 10 inches. You can do however many layers you want. It's your choice. It depends on how thick and full you want the tutu. Okay. All right. We've got our 4 layers. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to pleat it. I'm going to hand pleat it. So I like to take the front end. I've got my 4 layers here. Okay. And I like to take the end I'm going to have and I'm going to fold that over. Okay. And I'm going to hand pleat it. Now, I know the instructions on it say not to iron it, but I have ironed this stuff before and it's been fine. But that's your choice. Okay, so now we're going to hand pleat this. And you just have to do how you think is going to be best. There's no hard and fast rule on how to do this. And once I get it to a good point, I will tape it above the line, because this is going to be just like an applique that we're going to sew down. I'm going to tack it down with the tack down stitching, and then we're going to cut just like we do with the fabric. So now I'm coming in from the other end here. And I used to be a professional ballet dancer, so for me, I like to have lots and lots of ruffles and a very full skirt, because I'm used to wearing those tutus like that. So to me, that's authentic. Okay? But you may not like it that full. And like I said, tape, 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 tape. That to me is what is going to hold it in place. So I just keep pleating it until I feel it's even. And like I said, you can do as many layers as you want and do it as thick as you want it to be. And I just keep folding it in at intervals. And then at the end part here, I fold that over so it creates a nice kind of smooth finish instead of having a jagged edge from the tutu sticking out. Keep taping it, and you can see, if you can see, the stitching line is right here, so we're well above that. I'm going to fold in that last part here. And don't be afraid of using too much tape, because the tape is going to tear off so easily. You're going to be so surprised at how easily that tape comes off. Okay, you can see how much tape we've got on that. I know the tutu looks ridiculously long. Don't worry about that. We'll trim that in a minute. Let's go sew it. Okay, so we stitched it down, and now I'm going to remove the tape. Look at that. How simple and easy that's removing. Can you believe it? So the tape's all gone now. So we removed the tape. Now we're going to trim exactly like we would for any other normal applique we do. Trim this excess fabric up here, like that. And now we're ready to take it back to the machine to finish the decorative stitching on top and also the crown. Okay, now let's clean this up. So take out the pins. Going to remove the water-soluble stabilizer, which gently tears away very easily. Do you see this? This is my all-time favorite tool ever, I think. It's called the Seam Fix, and it's just your standard seam ripper, but this thing is amazing for removing water-soluble stabilizer in tight areas or areas that you would need to get in there closely to remove. Watch this. This little spot right here. Be picking and picking and picking at that. All you have to do is rub this tool right on the little spots of water-soluble stabilizer and they peel off. You could wash the shirt. You could spray it with water and wait for it to air dry. Or you could get one of these and remove it very fast. A clean new pencil eraser works just as well too. Okay, so now we need to trim our skirt because it's really long. And you could leave it that way if you want, but you kind of lose part of the number. So it just depends on how long you want the skirt to be. I usually just kind of gather it all back up into my hands. Like that. And then I like to cut kind of in a semicircle or a very shallow, narrow U. And I always tend to leave it a bit longer because then I can always go back and trim it up. Now you may think this tool is not great to use because you can see all the sparkles here and how is it going to wash. I made one for my daughter when she turned 8 and she has worn it for an entire year, probably once a week, and this stuff washes great. Cold water wash, inside out, and I put it in the dryer. Again, the instructions do not say to do that. No ironing and no washing, but I've done both of those as a product test, and I am here to tell you that it's fabulous. It works. So then you can go, and if you want to, you can have a very full tutu by spreading it all out, or you can leave it all nice and pleated. It is your choice. More cleaning up to do on this, but there you go. I hope this video was helpful. You can find this design on our website at www.creativeappliques.com, and it is called the Tutu Crown Number Set. Thanks for watching. Until next time.